Okay, so this is a grass-fed beef. We're gonna do a full breakdown on, and it has a boneless chuck roast. So we're gonna show you how to do that. One, two, three, four, five, under the 6th rib. Oh man. We're gonna cut that all the way through. And then the seam that we're gonna be cutting off is gonna be right here and then through the elbow. So you can see this little triangle of meat. So that is our starting point. We'll peel that down right here where the nose piece on the brisket comes in, right on that leg. We're gonna peel this down to find that seam. It goes right between those two. So separating the clod from the brisket. And we'll slowly peel this. We don't want to pull too hard. Just stab into that lifter. And then our next thing we're looking for is right here. That's the underblade steak. So we're gonna cut into here a little bit of an angle so that we can release to get that underblade. So right there, and we're gonna stay in that seam and just keep dropping this shoulder open. So I like to work just all the way down, nice, smooth, even strokes, staying right in that seam, pulling the shoulder open, and then just doing a relief cut to cut that seam apart. I'll go right up to the tip where this shoulder is. That way I've got the chuck on one side, and then this shoulder as it comes off. So there's that shoulder. So we'll bone that out in a second so we can go through the rest of this half. So our next thing we're looking for is right on here. There's a little mark of fat. It's about the same side right here that we made that relief cut. So right there, we're gonna go straight down from there, down the bottom. And then we'll cut just through these bones. And then we'll follow that line to get this chuck off. Okay, and then brisket. So I'll trace right down against the sternum. My knife's only in about 1/4 inch. I don't want to cut too deep and hit that brisket. And then right here on the corner, I'm going to snag right where the fat is, and I'll peel that back. A little bit of dry age on this brisket, so we'll trim that off. As we're peeling this open, there's a seam that we can follow. With this being grass-fed, it's not very fatty, and those brisket ribs are a little bit leaner. So here, the brisket coming off. And then my next cut, right here where these cartilages, I'm gonna look, and right where that changes is my line. So I'm gonna cut right there. Have it come out the bottom. I get just a little bit of meat out. Turn them off. Next, I'll cut out the hanger steak and the outside skirt. We've got this kidney fat. I'm going to peel down and cut off first. Then the hanger up into the skirt. So this is the outside skirt because it's outside of the carcass. And then the inside skirt is right here. So I'm going to trace it. So that I can peel this out. I want to be careful not to cut too deep on this top piece because the sirloin flap or the bavette is right here underneath. So I just cut really light. And then I'm pulling till I get to about here. And then the rest of that's protected by the ribs, so there's nothing else under there. So now I can be a little bit more aggressive pulling this out. So that's the inside skirt coming out. So that's 7 ribs up. Take off the short ribs. The navel. I'll prep this for rib steaks. Okay, the next is going to be flank, so I'm going to take off this piece, subcutaneous muscle, I believe, or the elephant's ear, or the matambre, whatever you prefer. That's just going to be trim, and then I'm going to pull off the whole flank. So I'll cut my prep line up here. There's a nice triangle piece of fat that separates the flank from the tri-tip. So I'm going to be just this side of that piece. And then I'm going to come up here and then ride right down where the fillet is. So I've got my knife angled in so I don't nick the fillet. I'll go right to where this hip is. And then I'm going to come down basically vertical to make that line. And I'll catch all this kidney fat. Just saves me a step later. Here's the 13th rib. So I'm going to peel this right off. And they want T-bones. So this turn right here, I'm gonna come straight through and make a hard line right where the tip of that fillet comes down to. And I've got to get just under that hip a little bit. This is an older beef, so it's kind of got some bigger hips. I want to keep that line really clean. And next I'm going to pull out the butt portion on this tender. So I'm going to cut hard into here. Go into this hip right here. There's the butt portion tender. Next is going to be a tri-tip. So tri-tip, I'm going to score, trace my line. That way as I'm taking it off here, it'll come off a lot cleaner. So I'll pull down until here. I'm going to release this corner. I don't want to cut too deep because that's where the top sirloin is. So this is where the top sirloin, and then this is the ball tip. So I want to be careful not to cut those too deep. My next cut, I'm going to get the knuckle off right in this valley. So here's the knee, and then there is the top of the femur. So I'm going to go in this valley, right from here hard against the bone, and then right out where that femur is. And then I'll cut the top here, above that kneecap, and then just score right here to separate that knuckle out. And I'm going to use the kneecap as leverage so my hook doesn't slide out. Tip will come off. And when I made this cut earlier, that's the line that I'm going to follow to take off this top sirloin. So it'll come straight through. There's a little triangle of fat that I'm going to use for my hook right here. And as I cut this down, I'm going to right along this ridge with my knife. Top sirloin. Then there's the oyster on the back, or the spider steak is out right inside this little hip. Next, I'll remove the H-bone. So I'm going to start along this edge, right across the top. So the trick in here is you want to cut into the ball where that femur is, and release that attachment. Because once you do that, then this whole thing will drop down and you'll be able to get around this pin bone a little easier. You can pull that off. Next will be the inside round. I'm going to trace it right here, separate it from the eye of the round. There's the inside round off. And then the eye of the round is right up here. And then the bottom flat, or the rump roast. And then the heel. I'm gonna be careful, this is where the Merlot sits, so I don't want to cut into that. Just separating out this heel as a whole piece. And then the hind shank. Okay, so now I'm gonna hang the shoulder up and peel this shoulder, and then everything will be primaled out. So my first cut I'm gonna make is to take this underblade steak off. So I'm gonna look for these tendon pieces coming up, and I'm gonna cut straight across right here till I get down to the bone. That is the underblade piece. I'll clean this up a little bit. Okay, so my prep lines. I'm gonna do one prep line on here. Do another one here. I'm not gonna cut too deep because I don't want to cut into this shoulder clod. And I'll come up and around this joint, hugging the bone until I get to the shoulder. And then on this side, around off the top. So from here, right where this starts to come out, that's where I'm gonna make this cut straight through, because there's a tendon piece right here that goes through that holds this paddle bone on. So I want to cut this early enough to leave that so that it helps hold on that paddle bone. And then prep on this side. I'm going to come across. I can see that tendon right there. So that's what I want to leave connected, because that's going to help hold this paddle bone on when I'm pulling it off from the rail. I'll trim up and around on here. So those are my prep lines. And I'll cut myself a spot for the hook. Okay, now that we've got it hung up, we have those prep lines. So now I'm just gonna connect my prep lines. So right here, I'm gonna go down around the shoulder, or the elbow. And then I'm gonna follow this line right around. So right through here, right up there. And then right here is the tendon that's connected to the flat iron. I want to cut that up high so it gives me a handle to be able to work with that flat iron after I pull it off. And I'm going to come around right here. I'm going to cut hard up against that paddle bone so that it releases. I like to use my hook just right in here to help pull it up over the top of that. This is a little bit older beef, so it doesn't come out quite as easy as some of the others, which really gets stuck on this paddle. Pull it down to here. On a younger beef, a lot of times this cartilage will break, where this is a little bit older. I'm gonna cut just right along that ridge to get that cartilage piece off. And then the rest of that can go in the garbage.